Yes, guys, welcome back to the instant reaction. Welcome back to the Champions League. That was fun. That was really fun. I really enjoyed myself this evening, I would say.
Exhilarating football that was.
I sat there and I thought, I'm so glad I spent so much time thinking about this club. I really did. And what
Could you imagine
what I was really
all the guys
pleased
that
by...
have travelled to Italy for that
Oh my god. Yeah, bless them.
on a Thursday?
On a Thursday. Christ. It's all gone woke. What I was really pleased by was that game confirmed to me we need to move on from Odegaard. So I'm glad that's cleared that up. I mean, and I'm really happy with that. Listen, Arsenal got their Champions League campaign off to a slow start in Italy this evening, 0-0 against Atalanta. Got lots to say. I think it was quite a bit of a chess game when it comes to a lot of the tactical stuff. I think Atalanta did really well, by the way. And, jokes aside, and credit to them, they made that game what it was. Defensively, I thought we were absolutely brilliant. But George, will come to you first, sort of overall thoughts on the game. And yeah, just some reflections on a bit of a snooze fest.
I thought the first 10 minutes was some seriously good football from us. And it seemed like we were engaging with...
We'll take it. Summon. We'll take it.
Well, you got to start with the good part, right? And then, and so we were involving Bukayo Saka quite well in the first 10 minutes. And I thought that we were moving the ball really brilliantly. And then it seemed that we started, or at least Atlanta maybe provided more pressure, and then we just went long quite a bit, and then we just almost sat into this 4-2-4 block for most of the game, in which it was basically a chess match between Atalanta, progressively trying to man mark us and increase their pressure in midfield as well as up top. And Retegui, I think, was doing some really nice movement, but then it was almost the counter response was Arsenal blocking the middle of the park brilliantly. And it was just this case of, Atalanta trying to probe. And then when Arsenal got the ball, I felt like we resorted to a lot more vertical play and then a lack of real invention in the final third. And mostly there was a lot of times that the ball just couldn't stick. I felt like between both Jesus and Thomas Partey really struggled. Good subs to happen when they did happen, but fundamentally, I don't think that we really were a team looking to play. And it was frustrating. I mean, I think on one level, you sit back and you try to have some perspective. Look, we've had a tough match at a North London derby in which we've won. We've got a tough match at the Etihad. One of those matches that you almost see the players looking ahead of the schedule as opposed to the game that's in front of them. And I felt like there was a lack of running in the final third, and there was definitely a lack of cohesion. I don't really know if the players felt like they could gamble and like they could create enough transitions, but we progressively throughout the match kept our wingers very wide, not involved whatsoever. And we were doing this weird thing in which we were going long up top for knockdowns from either Kai Havertz or Trossard to come in and hopefully create kind of mini transitions from those knockdowns, but really it was nothing sustained and there was no clear reference point. We went long quite often, and the only thing I'll say is David Raya, applause, chapeau. That was what a save. But beyond that, brilliant build-up, brilliant attempts. But I can't lie. I felt like the final third was really lacking in invention and authority.
Bhavs?
I think at times in the Champions League, the issue for us is we play to the occasion. And of course, Atalanta are on the top side. Going to their ground away is never easy.
It's Atlanta.
But in the final third.
Get it right.
Atlanta. But in that final third, especially like in the second half when Trossard came off the bench as well, he was so wasteful. Every time playing balls in behind, not quite working out, very frustrating. Missing a link there for sure, missing a final pass, and of course Martin Odegaard helped that as well. But there's still enough quality there to play a better pass than what we were playing there for sure. And I just feel like in the Champions League we overthink stuff in the final third too much because we're so scared of the opposition in terms of their attack and how we can get caught on the counter attack. In the Premier League we're able to maybe attack a bit better as well. And it reminded me a bit of Bayern last year in the second half, very toothless, and just lack of invention, a lack of creativity, a lack of a moment, and that's exactly what you need in the Champions League. And it's not just going to be Odegaard returning. There's enough players there to go for it. There's a lot of fear there for sure. And I think at times in the Champions League we need to stop playing to the occasion and play to our strengths.
Yeah, certainly not one I want to do a rewatch on, George. So we're definitely not doing that.
Choosing City, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I will say I want to give some credit to Atalanta. They made the pitch so big. with the wing backs, with the positions, with the way the midfielders were moving. Completely disrupted our distances. None of that sort of short passing stuff we could get off. I felt this was a game. I don't know what you boys thought, but this felt like a game where maybe Arteta's gone, right, if they do this, do this. If they do this, do this. If they do this, do this. And it's probably a little bit too much information that you take away from what you need to do. I felt like in possession, we were a little bit, we didn't see, as George was mentioning, we didn't really have a reference. We seemed, as you were saying, Bhavs, kind of overthink things in the final third. But for me, there was no kind of like, okay, we need to, we're a pattern of play sort of in possession. And then sort of when we were in possession in sort of the first phase, I felt as though Atalanta weren't really taking our bait, but then we'd go long, but because we were trying to get them to bait, we didn't really commit to going long. So it's this kind of like sort of halfway house where we hadn't quite committed to going long, hadn't quite committed to trying to get them to bait in. Atalanta didn't take anything. They were just really rigid and really strong. So it's just a bit of a game of cat and mouse, to be honest. And I think neither team wanted to gamble. You could come away from that and say, look, good point in the Champions League. You go away, you beat City on Sunday, and
it is though, and I'm not even gonna. I am gonna make this point.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna look at the broad spectrum of games, this is a tough game. I'm not gonna take it away. I think the frustrating part is maybe our intent in the final third was impotent. And if we had made intents and then it ended up being the same result, then I think the perspective on the game would be a little bit different. But I mean, from a result perspective, you can't deny a draw away at Atalanta in terms of who they are, what they've been able to do.
It's not terrible.
It's not a terrible result.
No.
I would say it's a mediocre performance. Good result, mediocre performance, and that's what frustrates me.
Very toothless.
And I'd even split it up from toothless and frustrating performance into the back half of our team was brilliant. Like, honestly, it was just the front half of our team. And maybe we should come to that incident, Bhavs. David Raya, what a save.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Fantastic. Do you know what? Obviously, a lot of the focus will be on the second save because it's obviously world class, but it's the first one. Like, the player takes his time. Obviously, there's a lot of time to think as well, and he stays concentrated. And I saw the stat, I think they said that he's got like a 90+ save rate this season, and we don't concede a lot of shots. And that means you have to stay very high, very concentrated. We've seen keepers in the past when you're asked to do that, they struggle. I remember going back to David Gea at Man United when he was asked to do save after save. It was fantastic. But when you go in those big games, you have to make a save every 20-30 minutes. It's harder to stay concentrated. But Raya finds a way. It's so high in terms of concentration, and also his feet, how quick he is, to get back up again and make the second save. It's fantastic to see, and he's now asserting himself as one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now. And it's great to see because obviously this time last year was a completely different story. You
did everything someone does when they're about to speak, George. So I'll let you speak.
Well, no, it was just
what was the silence for?
He did.
I thought I was behind you.
No, it's just part of the frustration for me is, look, I'm going to look at Kai Havertz a little bit, where I felt like he did a lot of really good work, but in terms of the reference point, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he was not able to take the ball down and get people involved into play. Neither was Jesus. And I think that front two, we had this thing where we really prioritized the center, and we prioritized basically having some rotations from our two strikers and then having some rotations with the pivot midfield who were far too big. The distances in terms of that Declan Rice, Thomas Partey midfield with Havertz and Jesus, or Havertz and Trossard, was far too big. And it felt like our most dangerous threats were relegated to wing back roles. And it was very frustrating. I think when you look at the best moments in the match is when Ben White was able to provide an overlap. And, that was when it seemed like Arsenal were at their most threatening. And Arsenal are just fundamentally at their most threatening when they include the wings and when we start to attack through wide spaces. And I felt like while the buildup was just really brilliant, I mean, it truly was the fluidity in the buildup. And especially in the last 20 minutes, while we got more impotent, we got more bold in buildup. And it was this weird thing where I was sitting there standing on my feet in build-up in terms of what Calafiori were able to offer us. And then in terms of, the differences in the rotations. And then I firmly sat down on my butt as soon as we crossed the middle third and said, okay, so we're just going to sit there and basically give up in terms of attempting any wide triangles. And it was frustrating. But I thought the subs came in and they did really well. And I thought, I'm looking at it broadly and thinking, okay, at least I felt like Calafiori came in and really helped affect play. One of the biggest things that I felt like while Timber gave us security in the left back spot, even in the little cameo, Calafiore shows you what he's going to do as a maverick in terms of not allowing this team to lull itself into sleep. And I do think another 20 minutes of Calafiore would have potentially created a situation. There was one brilliant run that he did late on, and he carried it in really, really nice, and he forces the issue to draw markers to him. And I just felt like there wasn't enough people willing to do that in the final third. People are going to point to Gabriel Martinelli, who I thought, again, in every instance that he was in the final third, was off balance, not something that he was able to take his shots on well, despite getting into good
Disagree,
position.
but we'll come to that. Disagree.
You thought he wasn't unbalanced taking shots?
On one of them he was, but there was another one where he just lost his lines.
I don't know about that. I thought he was unbalanced on pretty much every shot that he took. I don't think he set himself once. And, there was two, especially one in the first half, and especially the one where Sterling slots him through. That's unbalanced as well. I just feel like he's not setting himself properly, and he's snatching at chances for me. And, I mean, that comes from maybe his lack of importance in the team, but also potentially his maybe he's looking over his shoulder a little bit too much in terms of who's coming on in terms of competition. I just felt he himself in this game really struggled to set himself properly in terms of getting a good center of gravity when he received the ball in the final third.
Super chat from Matthew. Thank you so much. I really don't understand why Arteta always plays with the handbrake on. Give the players some freedom. It's so boring watching Arsenal. I think that kind of ties into what you were just saying, George, about Calafiore in terms of there was a moment where actually Trossard picks it up in the midfield and there's an obvious opportunity to carry, but he's just you can see him going, oh, we carry in this team sometimes. It's just constant associative play. It's constant. I'm going to find my winger, play the cut by web. Like Cuadrado is the perfect example. Now, Arteta would hate that in his team. He'd absolutely hate that. But sometimes you just got to have a go, mate. And that's like that's the sort of thing that I think we miss on our team a little bit. Let's go through sort of individual performances. We've spoken about David Raya a little bit. It's probably not loads to say about Ben White. I want to pick up on Gabriel. I will say Gabriel had a fantastic evening this evening. He was absolutely fantastic, winning every duel. The ease, he walks over to people and they just give him the ball. It's the authority he has is unbelievable. The defending the box, the thing is silly. Heading from corners, the confidence in both boxes, obviously, as we saw at the weekend. Saliba has the moments, like the Lookman moment this evening, and that gets put on highlight reels. But what you don't see with Gabriel is, the commentators are just over and over again going, Gabriel heads it away, ball comes in, Gabriel clears it away. And then what they do is they go, what a brilliant pairing. And you go, but you wouldn't do that if that was Saliba. If that was Saliba, what you'd do is you'd say, wow, brilliant. Is he as good as Van Dijk? You talk about individually. With Gabriel, it's always, Gabriel does a great thing. They're a great pairing. He was brilliant this evening. I thought Gabriel was brilliant. He deserve his flowers. Bhavs,
actually, in possession, sorry, really quickly, like he was one of the few in build-up that I felt were being inventive in terms of trying to find people between the lines, and especially in the last back half when Trossard came on the pitch. I felt Jesus was a silly backboard. I think I saw you on Twitter, Alex, say that he was a rubber band or something along those lines.
Honestly,
it's weird emoji used as well.
It's like it was just wet. It was just a wet. Oh no, not that one. No,
okay,
no.
Pause.
He plays like the human embodiment of a rubber band. But let's come to you're messing up my structure, Jorginho. Bhavs, individual.
In terms of Havertz, I think it didn't quite work in midfield. Off the ball, it makes sense to play him there because, of course, in terms of replacing Ødegaard and pressing, it makes the most sense because he works extremely hard. And in those big games, he can provide a moment, but he's just a link-up player, and he's not a player who can, play a pass across the line to link up the player on the other side. It's always like a little one-touch pass. It's very simple. And as a striker, when you're going long towards him, I think we saw it right towards the end of the second half when he's playing as a striker, and I think Sterling makes that chance for him. It goes because Havertz goes long first, and he's able to hold the ball up, and it works then because you can keep it simple as a striker. But when playing in midfield, you need to be a bit more elaborative in your passing, and you're going to play in the Martin Ødegaard role as well. It requires a lot more, and it's not quite working there. And we know the profile off the bench. The issue is that we're not going to see it until maybe Bolton, maybe Leicester, because starting 1 year at Atalanta away or Man City away for me is going to be impossible. And for these two games, Mikel will focus on off the ball. And in terms of Havertz in that role, he's perfectly fine. We saw it, times the second half as well. He drops back deeper. He works very hard. But to be a midfielder on the right hand side, I need to see him also involve Bukayo a lot more as well. There was not a connection there, and we've seen it more often. And when he plays up front, he can combine better with Saka. But playing as a midfielder today, his passing was just very average.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is Atalanta stretching us out, but I do agree. George, you can have one player
to talk about.
Yeah.
I'll talk about Jorginho when he came on. I thought that he did
brilliant.
really, really well when he came on, and he filled in at left back really brilliantly to allow Calafiori the ability to go and do some of those marauding runs. And I really liked how intelligent he was. You could really start to see the start of them understanding when he pushes and when he doesn't. I mean, that's natural. He's got to play with him in the international team as well. So he understands those movements when he's going to go. But I just thought the way that he was able to come on immediately and be really positive and be able to really affect play and possession was really good to see. So yeah, I like Jorginho. I thought he had a really good cameo.
Solid.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Who should I take? I'm gonna have Thomas Partey.
Talk to me. Thomas
Partey, uncle. I literally reached uncle status today. I found out I didn't found out my sister's having a baby girl. So I'm literally Thomas.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you, Thomas. I know your pain being
Uncle Alex.
Yeah, dude. Like the thing is with Partey is I actually think he's been better recently. Like I think the start of the season was super slow. Like preseason, he looked completely off it. Physically, wasn't actually my concern tonight. Okay, it's not perfect, but we know it. You know, he played. Did he play 90 minutes a weekend? I think he did. So that's not going to happen. My problems this evening was like the basics of football. Check your shoulder, bruv. Stop giving the ball away. Look around, scan, do something. Like there's games where he plays like a world-class superstar, and he's always so progressive in possession. Some of the rap he gets on his passes, like just takes out build-up like that. It's just unbelievable. But then he plays like he's in the U18s. Like it's like are you here? Like where are you're not like be present. You're in this game. It's like he's somewhere else. It's really frustrating. So yeah, but the thing is, if people say Partey's washed, and I'm like, okay, but what do you mean by washed? Because I agree there's been like a little bit of a physical drop-off, but it's not... People talk about Jorginho and Partey like they need to be in cryo chambers after every single game. They can only play 2 minutes a season, but they're like 31 and 32. They're not completely past it, but his decision-making has fallen off a cliff for me. It's really shocking. George, I'm sure you have thoughts.
I think part of the problem is also the selection of having Partey, Declan Rice, and Jurrien Timber in there. That's a pivot. Pick 2 out of 3 and go forward.
You've got a 3-man pivot.
You don't need all 3. And it basically resulted in confusion, in my opinion, in the role. As soon as Jorginho comes on, there's clarity in terms of Declan being able to go up, other people being able to go up. There just doesn't seem to be that clarity between, for me at least, between both Partey and Rice, feeling like they can do a lot of the same things in possession. But then right now, I think that out of possession, you're looking at Thomas Partey not being the same person. And so there's just an overlap and a redundancy of role, really, for me. And so I think it's just about picking a more balanced kind of mid-block or middle third group of players as far as that goes. But again, I think the distances between that pivot and the up top strikers is the issue, really. Yeah. And the issue is that we didn't go wide whatsoever.
I'm not suggesting he was in the perfect conditions, but George, he was also just giving balls away. Like we can just say that he's just passing to the opposition.
No, he was, but then at the same token, like I'm asking myself, like, okay, sure, that's happening, but I would argue that Havertz, Jesus, and the balls that were going into those were being lost at a far greater rate than the balls that were being fed to them that were being misplaced. And the biggest issue was a lack of reference up top. And basically all we had were knockdowns that nobody collected the second balls in. And that was the biggest issue for me.
Yeah, I do agree, but we're zooming out and we're talking about the individual, mate. And on an individual level, he's not. And this is what I'm not. Not trying to. I'm not putting Partey as the number one issue in the team. I agree. There's bigger issues, but I'm saying on his individual level, you can't give as many balls away as he has in recent games. And I'll make. He's not in the perfect conditions, absolutely. But like you can't keep doing that and expect it, it to be okay. So yes, we can talk about the conditions he's in, but there are just situations where he just passes the ball to the opposition, and it's happened too many games in a row now, in my opinion.
Yeah, frustrating. I would love to be able to ask Mikel what his thoughts were about essentially asking your pivot and your 2 second striker and striker to interplay with each other to create space in the final third. I would love to ask why that was the choice without your creative 10. That's what I'm really critiquing the coach for in this match. And I felt like, okay, you've got these big wide threats, and then we even got people that came on, right, in terms of Sterling. And what's the point of having these wide players if you're going to have them essentially as wingbacks in the system? And we're not going to create through wide spaces. You're going to have Ben White hold deep. You're going to have Calafiore come in, but you're not going to allow him to essentially have the freedom to go through forward. I don't understand. So for me, part of the problem is we relegated far too many people to the width of the pitch, and we were looking to overlap centrally without our most important high touch overlapping central midfielder. That for me was really strange.
I hear that. Bhavs, you can pick one more person and make it Martinelli.
We'll talk Gabriel Martinelli, why not? Yeah, again, it's kind of the same mode, isn't it? In the last few games, it's like an instinct in front of goal and snatching at shots. And I think it comes down to insecurity at this point, because he realizes that he is massively under threat. And he's been for a while as well. Let's not forget, Jan 2022, Mikel Arteta goes to 23, goes to go and sign Mikhailo Mudryk for £65 million. You know, would have been a record signing. You don't go for a left winger if you're not trying to replace your left winger. And at that point, Martinelli was having a good season, by the way. You know, he had 15 goals that year. So Mikel sees things that he wants to see better from Martinelli, and he's not getting it. And I'm going to be intrigued to see if he starts on Sunday against Man City, because you've got Raheem Sterling now who can start on that role. You've got Leandro Trossard as well. Of course, his pace is very important, but I think he's under threat, and he knows that, and he realizes that he needs to start scoring goals sooner than later, and that's why we see him snatching at shots and just, you know, being insecure in that final third, and not the clinical self that we know he is, because he's under pressure and he's getting to.
Yeah, I'm going to withhold my thoughts for this because I've already slammed Partey, and I don't want to do that thing where it's like a vaguely poor result. It's not even a poor result; it's a fine result. It's a fine result, and it probably will end up being a pretty good result in hindsight.
I maintain good result, mediocre performance.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about.
So we'll come to Martinelli another day. George, before we see the stats, anyone else you want to have a look at?
No, we can have a look at the stats.
You know we want to. We lost it. 0 goals to 0 goals. 1.0 expected goals, says Scott Willis. 7 shots to our 6. 54% possession to them for our 46. They had 58.5% of the field tilt. Far more final third entries than us. Sort of similar numbers to Tottenham in terms of the ratios and so on and so forth. There's the running XG. I think that would have been the penalty chance. Again, just David Raya, absolutely unbelievable. And they only had 1 XG, including the penalty. So I mean, I don't know what their XG would have been without the penalty. I'm not sure what that chance was.
It was the Martinelli one when Sterling slipped him.
That's Partey and that's Martinelli.
Yeah. And I think that kind of tells the story of the game a little bit in terms of a good opening sort of 15, 20 minutes. And then,
Which is what I thought. I thought the first 10 minutes were brilliant. And we were using Bukayo Saka. We were coming into play. It was definitely something that I was like, oh, this is going to be a really good game. And then we somehow just, I don't know what happened, whether it was the players or Mikel, we switched from that moment and just went long through the middle and couldn't win anything.
Yeah. I think we're very conscious of the Champions League. There's a lot of fear there, for sure, from the player side. And the moment the other team tries to start to play their stuff, they go, oh, hang on a minute. Champions League, Atalanta are a good side, need to be careful here. And they forget playing their own game because they're a top high-quality side. And if they start playing to their strengths a lot more often and growing in those games, and I think the developed characters that are needed going into the knockout stages, because we're going to have harder games at Atalanta, 100%. And I need to see more from the players, especially the attackers.
Harry Scary. Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. And thank you so much for your super chat. Very kind. You're our favourite person this evening, Harry. Just joined by far the best Arsenal channel out there. Love y'all. You can join us on Patreon and YouTube members for extra content. You lucky people. Fode and Die. Very sad not to have Waneri for some minutes. This feels kind of game state related, to be honest. I just don't think we had enough touches for him out there, honestly, for him to have a particular impact. I think it was just that sort of game. Bhavs?
I've kind of accepted that it's going to be post-Man City. You know, Bolton, Carabao Cup, you've got Leicester at home. There's games there for him, for sure.
We're saving him for the Rob Holding testimonial. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And if he has a couple good games against Bolton and Leicester, you know, you've got the games against PSG in the Champions League at home. There'll be games that Arsenal have a lot more possession. And that's what you're going to use either one year. In a game like this, I still think the attackers we had on the pitch today, Trossard, Havertz, Saka, there's a lot of players there, a lot of quality. Jesus as well. They need to do better. There's a lot, it's basic errors in that final third, poor passes. And I can talk about Martin Odegaard and Waneri, but there's enough quality there.
Ultra Pro Gamer, whose profile picture is of Rohan when he was younger, by the way. We all wanted Yeah, crazy. We all wanted at least a draw today, so can't argue. Yeah, I think this is one of those things where you're frustrated. This is an instant reaction, so we're frustrated, and I'm frustrated. I'll speak for myself. I'm frustrated at the moment about the performance and the result, but ultimately, you probably look back on this and go like, it's fine. Like it's one of those games where
we won't care about the game by tomorrow.
Speak for yourself, mate.
No, but like in terms of like it's done it. The results done it. That's about it. No one's gonna talk about the performance that much, is it?
Yeah, probably not long term, but I think we'll probably look back at this. I don't think this is not going to be the separator between us staying in the Champions League and not. Like, I think it's one of those things, and hopefully we change things out on Sunday. Right, let's come to as many questions and sort of comments and stuff as you guys can get in for us in the last few minutes. Martinelli is washed, says Azrael. No. Look, the only thing I'll say on Martinelli was, the reason I pushed back on you earlier, George, is I thought you were saying he was off balance, and that's not his fault. And I'm just starting to go like, okay, he's even finding himself in those positions that we talk about constantly, and he's not doing the business at the moment. At the moment, it's one of those things. Kieran52 says, ultimately, it's a draw, another clean sheet, and they only had about 0.25 XG without the penalty incident. However, there's some really obvious and glaring issues in possessions, which we need a fix for. I agree with that, Kieran.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the main thing for Arsenal fans tonight, is the attack, and it being toothless and it being a bit scared at times. Just be a bit more fearless and show your quality, because we've seen it, against other sides in the Premier League. They're able to go and provide a moment in a game like this today. I think we just, to be fair, look, if Martinelli scores his chance, and that's a very good chance as well, it's a different story here, smash and grab, but it's not the worst result, is it?
Don't disrespect Rohan. No, I was being, that genuinely was him. I'm not joking. It wasn't dissing him. That's genuinely him.
Disrespecting.
Can I clarify then the Martinelli thing? Because again, like, it's his fault for being unbalanced. What I mean by him being unbalanced is that himself, like when he's getting into the final third and he's getting ready to complete a final action, he isn't setting himself well balance-wise to take a shot. It's always on the edge of things. And I think that's increasingly got worse, and I don't know why. That's what I mean by him snatching at chances and him maybe not being able to be clinical in moments we expect him to be.
I thought you were saying we can't blame him because he's off balance. I was like, I think we can.
No.
So David Nasir says David Wright is the best signing since Odegaard. I did a poll. I don't know if either of you saw this. I did a poll back in January. And the poll was, it's hard to retrospectively analyze things, but knowing what we know now, would you have done the Raya deal? Any guesses? It was yes, no with the two answers. Any guesses on what the results were?
I think I saw it. It was like 60% no.
67% in January this year were saying no, they would not have done the Raya deal. Out of 1,000 Arsenal fans.
So, to be fair, that was about a month of him performing well, really, because it was after Ludin that I felt like he actually started to perform really well for the team. And Ludin was mid-November, I would say. So, yeah.
No, I hear it.
In Jan, Arsenal fans were all over the place. We lost against Liverpool in the FA Cup.
We must Fulham.
You know how Arsenal fans are when we lose. When we lose, we're like, I've seen some really horrible takes.
I mean, you guys would know more.
Of course.
I think we're the most like emotionally unstable fan base, where it's not like it's either
we know more.
I don't think it's football.
Well,
we try to insinuate.
no, like in the sense that we either are horrible or that we're really, really good, and the swings and the emotional swings are the greatest of maybe most fan bases. And I think everybody's emotional, but I think I see Arsenal fans online and I feel like it goes from like it's so over to we're so back within a day.
that's just the nature of social media, though. I think it's just football. I think all fans are like that. Henrik 13, thank you so much for your super chat. Really appreciate it. Let's come to Nindo, who is also a member, I believe. Thank you so much. What does this match tell us about how we'll set up against City? I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure loads, but I hot take. We're going to City this weekend, and I'm not going in there thinking this is a must win. Let's not get the media on our backs going, Arsenal have to win this week. No, it's September. No, we don't. The pressure's on City. We're at their ground. We go there. I think we do exactly what we did at the Etihad last season. I think we've got more of a threat from a long ball and more of a threat from a transition. By the way, already so far this season, both from carries and also just the running power in terms of Sterling and Jesus. And I think we did we have Saka or Martinelli last season? I don't think we had Martinelli for the Etihad, did we?
Well,
He
we
came
didn't
off
have
the bench, I'm
Martinelli.
pretty sure.
Yeah, we didn't have Saka at the Emirates. So I think we're in a much better position to go and do what we did basically against Tottenham, honestly. And there's no shame in that. There's absolutely no shame. We know we can play different games. So I don't know. I'm pretty okay about this weekend.
Yeah. I think it's a must not lose.
I watch how we defend. What's that? Is that like our 9th clean sheet in 2 games or whatever it is so far this season?
It's
like
goal all season.
We've conceded 1 goal. It's the middle of September. Like, we are unbelievable. Like, trust Gabriel, trust Saliba, trust them to go to the Etihad and lock them up. They absolutely will.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'll say is I feel like at the start of every season, City always look slightly vulnerable to transition centrally at the start of every season. And then after 10 to 15 games, they lock up and it becomes a period of basically win. But there's a period at the beginning of every season where I feel like City are vulnerable centrally. And I just hope that we're able to be inevitable in transitions. That was the biggest thing that I wanted, not to go back, but in the transfer window, I said that was the thing I wanted fixed for exactly these types of games, not just Atalanta, but also in terms of Manchester City. And that's what we're going to need to do. I think one thing that we know from this game is this 4-2-4 block and how we're going to move out of possession, especially without Odegaard against, for me, what are high pressing or high possession teams. That's going to be the situation without Odegaard to cope. We're not going to go as man-to-man. It's going to be more block and more zonal. And we're going to be in this 4-2-4. Now, my worry is that's fine, but we can't make the distances as large as we did in this game between our pivot and between our front 4.
Or allow them to be, I think was, for me, is more the take.
Yeah, and sure, maybe that, but I think we need to be braver in wide spaces and we need to be willing to engage in them because I do think that City are going to leave spaces there. So I'm hoping.
Alejandro, thank you so much. Raya Izar Casillas. That's Spanish pronunciation, guys. I love you guys. And come on, you Gunners. That's right. That's right. We can speak a different language. I know you're impressed, Bhavs. I can see it. Please read No New Thing, George's burner. Guy lives on a different planet.
I am Canadian, not, I believe, Nigerian.
The TDK enthusiast. I hope that's about me. My ego's telling me it is. Timber into midfield and Kala at left back fixes some issues and keeps defensive solidity, surely. Bhavs?
I mean, I think Timber actually comes alive towards that final third. We saw it against Spurs. Like, he's actually very comfortable there, surprisingly. I think when he's in the defensive third, he's a bit more conservative in his passing. But yeah, when he comes in that final third, he's a lot more inventive as well. And Calafiori, as we saw today, as George said, he's a maverick. You know, he's so inventive on the ball and he's so like fearless as well. And in a game like Man City, where you need a moment of magic to break through a line and break through a press, I think Calafiori might be very useful as well. I just don't know if Mikel will try or play who's never played in midfield before, you know, starting wise in a game like City. But if he does, I could see logic behind it.
You all laughed at me. 1942. Do you guys think we often forget that a qualified person is at the helm? Reason being, I think we fans feel so in control of our teams, we forget that we don't know. A lot of this start is by design. Yeah, I think I always kind of encourage the idea of like, if something doesn't make sense, I guarantee Arteta's thought about it. So it's about going, right, what do we think he thinks, essentially? The idea that Arteta doesn't know the distances were off this evening, or Arteta doesn't know that Thomas Partey didn't have it, that's not the case. No one's saying that. But then it's like, okay, working backwards, like what George said earlier, like I'm interested in what we were doing with the pivot and getting it into Jesus and Havertz, because they would have been thinking behind it. It's just like, what is it? Because we couldn't understand it.
I do think that he needs to do better in terms of changing things that aren't working to plan. I think he's always struggled with that in terms of, especially when you see something not going to plan, he is slow to react. And that's not just through a sub appearance. I mean from like a tactical perspective.
I do agree. Within games
goes out. Yeah.
He'll change stuff between games, but within games he is quite slow. And maybe finish on this. Another ex-Arsenal player playing well against us. Oh, how has Sead Kolasinac outdone Jesus? He beat him to a ball.
Yeah. He's a machine, though. Look at the size of him. He's an absolute machine. He's a unit.
Just a
meat size of his neck.
Oh my goodness me. Look, we'll finish there.
I want to end on a hot take, because that's what these are built for. Gabriel Jesus, the biggest wasted resources in the squad, and is there a conversation that this needs to change? I think people were a little bit hesitant. I was really afraid in the summer about having him. I think wage-wise and quality and impact on the pitch from what we're doing, that is something that we need to address, and Mikel needs to address. I think that's a problem waiting to happen.
Yeah, in terms of resources, it's certainly a conversation. The one thing Jesus had going for him was that you felt as though the rubber bandness, was kind of useful. Like if as long as Jesus isn't being asked to hold up the ball. There was a moment where Kai Havertz held up the ball beautifully, by the way. One moment. But the
one duel one.
The one duel. No, but there was a really nice moment. But Jesus can't do that, right? And that's fine.
No,
but Jesus can get a yard on you and spin you and all that sort of stuff. If you can't beat Kolasinac to a ball,
that's have the speed, mate.
That's what I'm saying. And at that point you go, oh, okay, well, that's kind of it's like the Bellerin conversation, and then you're looking at 290k a week and you're going, oh, okay. Start learning Arabic, buddy. Yeah, it's a concern. I didn't say that. I didn't mean that.
To be fair,
I didn't mean that. I'm ill. I'm sick. Pleasure as always, boys.
Yes.
Pleasure as always.
Thank you for being here, boys and girls in the chat. We'll be back for the instant reaction. Actually, I won't be here, but these two will be here on Sunday. I'm at my friend's. I won't say that. So I know I won't say that. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, but it's I'm somewhere else, but I'll tell you after. And
depending on how it goes.
No, I shouldn't have said that. It's not a girl thing. I'll explain it. You'll all see. Right, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm somewhere else, and it's not a sex party, and it's not something stupid. Right, okay, we'll consider that. Thanks for being here. We've got loads of content and stuff coming out over the next few weeks on Patreon and YouTube member side. You can check that out. Joe and I did sorry, my friend Joe just texted me. George and I just did a scouting episode on Ethan Waneri, which is really, really good. In my opinion. So you should go check that out. It is. I think it's really good.
And ours too. I feel like we don't do this enough, but guys, thanks for all your support. And yeah, make sure you guys comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We do see everything, and we're really appreciative of all you guys staying with us, even in these moments where the games feel like they are impotent. Hopefully you're not impotent on that front.
Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for watching, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal. No.